Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson, World Alternative Media here, and of course we're joined by author and economic analyst here, John Sneisen, and we are in Miami Beach, Florida. A beautiful view, not so bad for January, but anyway, we got news that has nothing to do with Miami right now, which is Zimbabwe.
Another warm place.
Yeah, another warm place. Not for the city, not a good place to go. Anyway, Zimbabwe. We've talked about it countless times before regarding Mugabe, and then the military takeover, and then he was replaced and. But it just goes to show that you replace government with more government and you're just going to end up with government. It's a cancer. You don't replace 95% of cancer with other cancer. You don't get rid of pancreatic cancer just for colon cancer. Sure, one might be better a little bit, but it's still terrible and you don't want either of them. It's like, do you want one beating a day or 2 beatings a day? I would prefer no beatings a day. Anyway, so this is kind of crazy news. And as this article from the Washington Post, and by the way, yeah, it's a Washington Post. We'll expand. I know the Washington Post is complete garbage. Goebbels would be proud. Anyway, so as this Washington Post article says, Zimbabwe's president raised fuel prices above $12 a gallon and then jetted off to Russia. Deadly chaos ensued. And as the article goes into, pent-up anger found its vent on Monday in Zimbabwe as thousands crowded the streets of cities and towns nationwide to protest the mismanagement of an economy that has undeniably rotted to its core. Just 5 months have passed since Emmerson Mnangagwa took over as president from Robert Mugabe, who ruled for nearly 40 years and presided over Zimbabwe's initial catastrophic economic meltdown. But Mnangagwa, who won a contested election on promises of putting the country back in business, has made decisions that strike many Zimbabweans as a continuation of Mugabe's misguided policies. Mnangagwa deposed an increasingly erratic Mugabe with the help of military in November 2017, but a subsequent election was marred by accusations of vote rigging. On Sunday, just before taking a private jet on an official trip to Russia, all of the state-owned airline planes are grounded. Mnangagwa announced a 140% increase in fuel prices, raising the cost to $12.53 a gallon and making Zimbabwe by far the most expensive place to gas up in the world. For many Zimbabweans, it was the last straw. They took to the streets, but in another echo of the Mugabe era, so did security forces, looters, and unidentifiable armed men. According to the advocacy group Doctors for Human Rights, 5 people have died during the protests and nearly 40 have been treated for gunshot wounds in Chitungwiza, one of the capital Harere's sprawling suburbs, and Kadoma, a town southwest of Harare. Security Minister Owen Nkube told state-owned media Monday night that more than 200 people had been arrested nationwide. Internet connections were also shut down in some areas. And I quote, "A number of people in plain clothes but armed with AK-47 rifles were video recorded shooting people in Harare. They are likely security agents not in uniform," said Dua Mavhinga, director of Southern Africa for Human Rights Watch. The current crisis harks back a decade. Zimbabwe gained international notoriety in 2008 when its inflation rate ballooned to a ludicrous, record-breaking extent, prompting the government to print $100 trillion notes. The result was that Mugabe scrapped the national currency and allowed Zimbabweans to use international currencies in local transactions. Inflation is now at a more comprehensible 31%. Anyway, we'll cut out of that for a second. Isn't it funny, John? We first reported on the Zimbabwe hyperinflation and how they tried to replace it with a US dollar-backed currency, like, fiat versus fiat versus fiat. Like we said earlier, cancer replacing cancer. It's absurd. And then, they're trying to hide these forces as just private agents and not part of the government. This is just a perfect example of the Stockholm syndrome that people have of, let's replace one government with another. By the way, doing this video, I'll never be able to go to Zimbabwe. But with that said, I do want to point out that this is very reminiscent of most countries in the world. And
or maybe we will. Maybe Zimbabwe will adopt some good currencies.
Yeah, as individual, free market competing currency systems outside of this ridiculous legal tender law nonsense, because all fiat currencies eventually revert to their true value of zero, always have, always will, going back to 1024 AD in China. Now, first of all, I apologize for not being able to read the names of these people. It's very complicated on the go and, whatever. Anyway, let's talk about this, John. This is more craziness in Zimbabwe. The hyperinflation, the centralization, the government control of the populace, and the populace thinking that they're freeing themselves with more government. What do you think?
Well, first of all, we got to discuss what they said in the article, the more comprehensive 31% inflation rate. That's an insane inflation rate in the first place.
I think they're being sarcastic.
You lost like so much money already there. Old people that saved in whatever Zimbabwean dollars they had, they're losing out big time. The thing is, when you try to run a government, then you're basically just printing money and putting in new government policies. You're trying maybe to socialize yourself more. Whatever you do, you always destroy everything because you are promising something, then you got to print it after, and that's what you're seeing now, like 134%. That's probably maybe closer to what actually the price is, the inflation is, than the 31 that's the official one that we hear from Zimbabwe. So, and of course, they were ridden with the inflation in Zimbabwe. I wrote about that in my book, The End of Freedom, How Our Monetary System Enslaves Us, where at one point you had the $100 trillion bill come out. That bought you two for a bear at the time, and then 2 weeks later it bought you two bears. So it just shows you how insane inflation was in the first place. And of course the government during that time, they stopped people from being able to buy gold and silver and use it. That was criminalized. So the government implemented laws in order to keep their fiat kingdom and keep people enslaved under that fiat umbrella that they had with their currency. But no matter what happens here in Zimbabwe, this is just another story of insane government policies and trying to control prices. Is first of all, you just suddenly raise prices, and the government raised the price. Why can't the free market actually come up with a price in Zimbabwe? That doesn't make sense to me at all. But that is, again, what is believed today, and you actually see that in major oil markets today. The crude cartel that's out there that's setting the oil prices. That's just ridiculous, Josh. And we have all these cartels everywhere. You have the central banking cartel. You have whatever cartels you have in different businesses.
Statism, collectivism. It's a whole bunch of criminal enterprises competing for the most power over the populace, and the populace bows down to them and says, please rule me, please help me, save me from myself, save me from the problems you created in the first place. And it's absolutely absurd, and it needs to end. People need to break free from collectivism. They need to decentralize. They need to be free and rule themselves. I mean, people are born free. The only thing that takes it away is government. Government cannot give you freedom. Only you can give yourself freedom by protecting your freedoms. And you're not protecting your freedoms by bowing down to the all-knowing, all-powerful state that gets off on extorting you and killing people and kidnapping people if they disagree, and just criminalizing people and making your life more miserable. I mean, folks, I'm impoverished. How about you stop bowing down to the government to save you from that poverty, the government that created that poverty in the first place alongside the central banking system? John, I mean, this is not going anywhere good anytime soon. I mean, people are going to rally in the streets, and unfortunately, they're going to elect another government. If anything, they'll overthrow this one. Took them 40 years to get rid of Mugabe. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. Where do you see this going in the future?
Well, unless the people in Zimbabwe is actually going to educate themselves and look at how their a government structure is run and how corrupting that is of society, and then the implementation of all these different currencies that are corrupted by other governments. It's not necessarily the Zimbabwean government that corrupted the US dollar. It was the US dollar that fucked up the US dollar. So you see that all throughout history. Is they got to understand and start to educate themselves. What's really funny, Josh, last time we did a video on Zimbabwe, we had all these Zimbabwean government Mugabe trolls coming on our webpage saying how great Mugabe is and how fantastic Zimbabwe was. Well, look at it now, how great it is. Of course Mugabe is out, so we can't claim that Mugabe now that this guy, that's his fault. Well, the problem is it's the government's fault. Government, central control mechanism that they're trying to do here in Zimbabwe and everywhere else. There's a majority of African countries being at the top together with South American countries on the inflation train lately of currencies that are going really bad and economies that are going south. The problem here is the government in itself, and what we need to see with Zimbabwe and other nations down there, you guys need to start severely implement cryptocurrencies and start trading outside of the system itself.
Well, I would say utilizing, not implement. Implement has a connotation of government force.
That makes sense, yeah. So like just utilize the great tools that are out there in cryptocurrency, in precious metals, being able to trade outside of the fiat grid, as we call it, all these stupid fiat currencies like the yuan, the dollar, whatever you guys are using down there as a medium of exchange. All of those are run, and of course, like you're talking about the yuan and the US dollar, like they're both massively corrupted currencies. So you're just like you took out one terribly run currency and then you implemented with less terribly run currencies. It's just stupid in itself, like wanting to actually adopt one fiat for another, and not understanding and educating yourself on actually what is the main issue and what is the main cost. It's the government is the number one, and then of course they always issue the legal tender laws and fiat currency. So that's the two major issues in any country today that we see, and it's not just Zimbabwe, like everywhere, Josh. And like just saying that, oh yeah, he raised the oil prices, that's fine, but like again, it comes back to the government and the fiat currency that they use to control people.
And this is exactly why what they're doing in Venezuela is that it actually worked out well, because instead of asking for more government in the case of Maduro, the currency failed, the Bolivar failed, and then they're like, oh, what about the Petrocoin? And people are like, no, this is all nonsense. We're not looking at government and central banks to help us anymore. We're going to help ourselves, and they're competing on the free market, competing currency system, Dash, Digibyte, Bitcoin, Litecoin, other cryptocurrencies, Monero, and they're breaking free from that system. And the government's like, no, you can't do this. We're going to do this and this and this. And they're like, no, I don't really care what you say. And they're going to do the same thing in Argentina. And interestingly enough, Argentina has been through a bunch of hyperinflations. Venezuela has gone through a hyperinflation. Zimbabweans, look at what they're doing. Take some advice from them, because they aren't looking at government. They're not burning things in the street. They're just doing what they need to do with their own lives and breaking free from that grid, and not asking the government that created the problems to solve the problems. So as this Mnangagwa, whatever his name is on a plane to Russia and hang out with Putin and whatever, I don't really care. It's all nonsense. Government are organized crime, and taxation is theft, and all these people are just criminals that are trying to extort you and make use you. And we're gonna get people on this video going, well, speak for yourself, don't speak for Zimbabwe. I'm not speaking for Zimbabwe. I am speaking for myself, and I'm a free person, and I don't believe in this nonsense that you guys keep. I know there's lots of people in Zimbabwe that aren't bowing down to this, but like, folks, come on, this is ridiculous. How many times does it have to repeat?
And it's also a historical perspective, Josh, just looking at the cycles of government. You start with like little limited small government, and then it always encroaches and it gets bigger and bigger because people get lazier and lazier, so they want the government to implement more and more things, and then you're stuck in a massive government police state at the end. And that's what you're seeing in Canada, all across the world, like in Australia. Like all these places are turning into massive police states because we became too lazy. We weren't willing to take self-responsibility. We kind of slid into that collectivist mentality of the group that the government needs to take care of everybody, and now we're going to be imprisoned by it, and we need to get out of that belief system. That's what needs to happen. There's no way out of this other than the massive failure of every government around, or you're going to live in a totalitarian regime like China or other places, right? That's your choice.
Yeah, absolutely. So now, as we wrap this up, because I'm a Canadian and Norwegian in the heat here, we got to get out of the heat. We've got the beautiful ocean next to us here, and it looks beautiful and all that, and very happy to be here in Miami Beach, Florida, and we'll be coming back at you with a lot more here in Miami as we go to the North American Bitcoin conference. And I want to let everyone know as well to check our affiliate with Mike Maloney's Gold Silver. We got the link pinned to the top of the comments. I want you guys to check it out. Very excited about that. Mike Maloney is one of the best in the game, and it's all about protecting yourself, protecting your purchasing power. Gold, silver, cryptocurrency, in our opinion, do your own due diligence, folks. But we can look at history, and we look at the new innovations done on the blockchain with blockchain infrastructure and, of course, currency as well. Very important. We are in an amazing time. It's an amazing time to be alive, and we got to utilize the opportunities we have to the best of our ability to break free from those government collectivist systems. So anyway, thanks for going into this with us, John. And until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson and John Sneisen signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth,
be the change.
Like what you see here, OM? Don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We can't do it without you. Any donation is very much appreciated, especially as we are so vastly demonetized and censored on YouTube, as these guys come in and flag all of our content as hate speech. Also, check out our Bitcoin address below as well as on the screen for you to scan if you please. And also check us out at steemit.com. We're at Josh Sigurdson. It's a future of social media where you get paid in the upvote of your post in cryptocurrency. Steem, that is. So make sure to check us out there. Make sure to join us at Anarchapulco 2019 with people like Ron Paul, G. Edward Griffin, of course, Jeff Berwick, Vid Jedlicka. So many incredible speakers are going to be speaking. It's just a massively growing event. It is something you have to see to believe. So make sure to check it out below and save money on your tickets by using promo code WAM, that's WAM, and I hope to see you there. Also, check out our newsletter as we are getting demonetized and censored and all that. We don't know what comes next, so we have an email, worldalternativemedia@gmail.com. Send us an email with subject line YES, YES, and we will include you in the newsletter where we will continuously keep you updated. So until next time, thanks for watching, everyone. This is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.
I'm sure you have already changed people's minds in your young age because you're involved, and I like that.
Bye.